Have you ever been in a public place when suddenly you feel like something's wrong? That tension in the air that gives you goosebumps. Well, everyone in this cafe felt exactly that when three bikers got off their motorcycles and one of them set his eyes on a defenseless little girl. Imagine the scene. A perfect morning in a cafe, the sun shining, people sipping their coffee peacefully. Suddenly, the roar of motorcycles breaks the calm. Three men in leather jackets get off their bikes like they own the place. But this wasn't an action movie, buddy. It was real life, and a little girl was about to face the scare of her life. Laila Carter was only 6 years old when a drunk driver took her parents and her freedom in one horrible night. Now, from her wheelchair, she navigated the world with the help of her uncle David and her loyal companion, Rex, a German shepherd trained by her father before he passed away. Rex wasn't your average dog. This guy had worked for 3 years in the police canine unit, specializing in search and rescue. His training was so impressive that he had even received special recognition for finding children trapped under rubble. When Laila's dad passed away, Rex became something more than just a service dog. He became her guardian, her confidant, and her bridge to independence. That morning in the cafe, while Uncle David had run quickly to the pharmacy, Laila was sitting alone at her usual table, reading quietly with Rex by her side. Everything was normal until the bikers arrived. The leader of the group, a tall, muscular guy named Ethan Cole, had that lost look that some veterans get. His eyes carried the weight of 3 tours in Afghanistan and too many sleepless nights. The war had drained him completely, replacing his confidence with anxiety and unpredictable rage. Ethan noticed Rex immediately. His trained eyes recognized the disciplined posture, the alert gaze, the way the dog constantly monitored its surroundings.
"That's a good dog," he said to his friends, Tyler and Jack, his voice loud enough for Laila to hear.
I bet he's military.
Laila felt a small surge of pride. People always praised Rex, but few understood the full extent of his training. She glanced toward the cafe door, expecting to see Uncle David coming back, but the door stayed empty. Without warning, Ethan stood up abruptly. "I'm going to check on that dog," he said, ignoring the way his friends rolled their eyes. "Leave it, Ethan," said Jack, half rising from his seat. "Just drink your coffee." But Ethan was already moving across the patio with deliberate steps. The patrons watched him with distrust, unsure of his intentions. As he approached Laila's table, Rex tensed, though he stayed in position. The little girl looked up at the tall man who was now standing next to her table. Her face was calm, despite the flutter of anxiety in her chest. "Good morning, sir," she said politely, as her Uncle David had taught her. Ethan seemed momentarily surprised by her formality. "Good morning, little one." His eyes stayed fixed on Rex. "That dog of yours, German shepherd, purebred, I see." "Yes, sir, his name is Rex," Laila answered, her hand instinctively moving to rest on Rex's head, both for her comfort and to signal calm to the dog. "Rex, huh?" Ethan crouched down until he was eye level with the dog, a movement that made Rex's ears flatten slightly. "You're a working dog, aren't you, buddy?" He extended a hand toward Rex's snout. "Please don't touch him without permission," Laila said quickly. "He's on duty." "On duty?" Ethan paused, his hand still suspended in the air. His eyes then noticed the service vest that he had somehow overlooked earlier. He looked over at Laila's wheelchair. The understanding dawned slowly on his face.
"Ah, right."
But instead of pulling his hand back, he left it hovering just inches from Rex's nose. "I've handled dogs like him before. They know me." From across the patio, one of Ethan's friends shouted, "Come on, man, leave the girl alone." But Ethan seemed transfixed by Rex, by the dog's controlled alertness and the intelligent evaluation in his eyes. Something about the animal triggered a cascade of memories. Desert sand and night patrols, the comforting weight of a canine companion by his side in the dark. "Ex-military?" he asked, though it wasn't really a question. Laila shook her head. "Police. Worked with my dad." At the word dad, a shadow crossed Ethan's face, a hardening around his eyes that Laila couldn't interpret. The cafe had gone unusually quiet. The other patrons sensed the strange tension building between the man, the girl, and the dog, who watched Ethan unwaveringly. "Your dad was a cop then?" Ethan asked, his voice rougher now. "He was," Laila replied simply, the past tense heavy with meaning. Something flickered in Ethan's eyes. Recognition, maybe, or the ghost of a memory. He suddenly straightened, standing above the table.
"Good dog you've got," he repeated.
Although the words sounded automatic, he now turned and walked back toward his friends. But something had shifted. Their conversation grew animated, punctuated by occasional laughter that sounded too loud, too forced. Laila tried to go back to her book, but she found herself reading the same sentence over and over. Rex knew too. His body remained tense, his attention fixed on the three men whose presence had disturbed the peaceful morning routine. Ethan stood up again, ignoring Jack's murmured curses. This time, he moved more aggressively, and Rex's reaction was immediate but controlled. The dog stood in perfect position next to Laila's wheelchair, his body now directly between the approaching man and the little girl. "See that?" Ethan said loud enough for his friends to hear. "Defensive positioning. Perfect execution." He stopped about 5 feet from the table, respecting the invisible boundary Rex had established. "Has your dog ever been deployed overseas, little girl?" Laila shook her head, her small fingers now resting lightly on Rex's shoulder. "No, sir. Rex worked for the police department in search and rescue." "Search and rescue, huh?" Ethan's tone shifted, taking on a challenging edge. "Has he found any missing people lately?" "He's retired now," Laila answered, "except to help me." She gestured toward her wheelchair, a simple movement that carried the weight of the explanation.
Without warning, Ethan clapped sharply, the sound cutting through the patio like a gunshot. Coffee cups wobbled as startled patrons jumped, but Rex didn't flinch. His ears momentarily flattened, his muscles tensed, but he remained in perfect position. His eyes locked on Ethan with unwavering focus. "Enough, Ethan!" Jack shouted from his table, half rising from his chair. "Leave the girl and her dog alone." But Ethan had found a target for the restless energy that constantly stirred inside him. "Good boy," he said to Rex, his voice laced with mockery. "Very steady. But what happens if I do this?" He took a sudden step toward Laila. Rex's response was immediate, a low and resonant growl that vibrated deep from his chest, a warning as clear as spoken language. The dog didn't move from his position, didn't bare his teeth, but the message was unmistakable. "Stop. Now." "Cut it out," Laila said. Her voice was smaller now, but still composed. "You're scaring everyone." Ethan looked around, suddenly aware of the tension that had spread throughout the patio. Several customers had pulled out their phones, some openly recording, others with their fingers hovering over emergency contacts. For a moment, something like shame flickered across Ethan's face. He stepped back, lifting his hands slightly. "I was just testing his training," he said, the excuse sounding empty even to himself. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Rex is very well trained," Laila said, her hand still resting on the dog's shoulder. "My dad made sure of that before he passed." Her composure wavered slightly at the last words, the pain of a little girl briefly visible beneath her careful facade. Something in Ethan's expression changed at the mention of Laila's father. A muscle twitched in his jaw, his fingers curled into fists at his sides. "Your dad taught him well," he said, his voice rougher. He turned abruptly, heading back to his friends with stiff shoulders. What followed was a turn of events no one could have predicted. Tyler, the youngest of the three, had received a frantic call. His friend Jack was in trouble. A guy named Mason, whose brother had died in an operation that Ethan's team couldn't back up in time. Mason had followed Jack home with some of his friends. The police department became the center of a rescue operation. Ethan, despite orders to stay back, knew Mason wouldn't respond to the police. Mason's hatred for authority ran too deep. When the situation escalated and Mason pointed a gun at Ethan, Rex appeared out of nowhere. The dog had sensed the danger and acted purely on instinct and training, positioning himself between Ethan and the weapon. Just as Mason fired, the bullet hit Rex's shoulder instead of Ethan's chest. At the veterinary hospital, while they waited for news on Rex, Ethan finally told Laila. He had known her dad in Afghanistan. They had trained Rex together when he was a puppy. Laila's dad had saved Ethan's life by trusting Rex's instincts to detect a buried bomb. "Your dad was the best man I ever knew," Ethan told Laila, his voice breaking with emotion. "He had planned for us to meet, but after my injury I cut ties with everyone. I couldn't handle normal life." Dr. Lee came out with good news. Rex would make a full recovery, though he would need rehabilitation. Ethan offered to help. He had experience training military service dogs and could assist with Rex's rehab, while also helping Laila with her daily needs. 6 months later, at a gathering in the park, friends and family had come together to celebrate Rex's full recovery. Ethan, now sober and receiving proper treatment for his PTSD, had found his purpose in helping Laila and honoring her father's memory. While Ethan helped Laila adjust Rex's harness with the patient experience that had become his contribution to their lives, it was clear they had formed something more than just a friendship. They had become family. Sometimes our deepest wounds can become bridges to connection, rather than barriers. Rex's unwavering loyalty reminds us that courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's the quiet persistence of showing up, day after day. Did you like this story of loyalty and second chances? Like it if you believe in the power of chosen family, and let me know in the comments what you found most impactful about this story. See you in the next video.